Yes, I'm ready. I think we can start. We have 10 people online and we can go on. Let me quickly remind you what we have from today, what we have for today. And we are here. It's our second webinar. First one was day before yesterday. It was quite general one. And this one is going to be more practical. We will talk more details about Monkey and how one should create proper task list. But first of all, I would like to spend a couple of minutes just to go over takeaways from the first webinar that I took from your responses on Google form that I have sent you to get the feedback. So I do it, and I'm going to do it in the following webinars just to check if you got the message I was thinking that I was translated. So first takeaway was obviously has been taken, that we should not trust to our memory to store something important like task list. So it was noticed in the form that concept of writing something down, specific list items, was got. Okay. Another point is some of you noticed that there's a great point that newer items can be perceived as more important because it's the way our perception works. So we should not try trust to our perception of urgency and importance. And another comment that I get from the forum, that someone has written about mindfulness. By the way, how do you typically practice mindfulness? Because I was told that it is becoming more and more popular in US and Eastern world, the mindfulness. Actually, it is what has been already known for the world as a Buddhism, for example. They have a lot of practices for mindfulness. Can you share just a few words about this in our question pane about how do you practice mindfulness? Maybe some book, some story, some link, some resource. Can you share this, please? It would be nice and I think very useful for all of us to take a look at. And another point I also would like to point out is that some of you found instant messenger to be a little bit distracting, but in fact it is terribly distracting. All those messages, all those new email notifications, all those terrible pop-ups on your smartphone, on your desktop computer, all of them are terribly distracting. And it will be the topic of our next webinar on Friday. We will talk a little bit and try to make our attention stronger. I will show you some ways to do so. And also, I'm going to describe you some funny experiments that was conducted on real life humans that shows that typically we might not be aware of our distractions. So, and another point also, I hope that it is more or less clear and it has been got from first webinar, is that we have plenty of time and we have some substance, some resource called mind fuel, and it is really the thing that typically we lack of. And you know, often they say that we have not got enough time to do something, but unfortunately rare person can say that he or she has not enough mind or he or she is lazy to think, but actually it is closer to truth. Okay, let us start. Let us go back again for maybe 5 minutes. I would like to remind you the practice of thought triggers and how it helps us to unload our working memory. Can you also go to this link? This link contains a mind map with typical general thought triggers that can remind you something important that may be even potentially forgotten. Can you go to this link? I will double into the chat in 5 seconds. Here the link. Let us spend 5 minutes looking at that mind map and try to remember maybe something that still is stored in our memory and just write down this to the list. We will use this list for our exercises for the rest of today's webinar. So the more we have in the list, the more ability to practice we will have. Let us do it right now. Just try to open it. Does it work for you? If no, just send me something in question pane. Let us spend 5 minutes to clear our memory. In exactly the same way, like if you know, actually, karate class starts from short meditation. When the master came and say, Seiza Mokoso or Mokoso Yame, and then they pretend to meditate for some moment. Let us do it right now. Okay, I think that's enough for the beginning. Can you send me the number? How many new items have you added to your list at this session? Just to the question pane. How many numbers? 4, 3. Federico has added 4 items. How many of you added as well? Usually 3, 3, not too much. Sometimes I found people that can add 20 items to the list or 15. I have too many things to do, as Paolo says. So it is typical, too many things to do. That's what we are going to deal with actually. So it is not a problem to write down 20 items. But right now I'm going to share some further ideas with you, because on the first webinar I was merely told you that this list that you have created is the task list, but actually it is not. What we typically do have right now after this exercise, after unload our memory, we have something that we can call raw inbox. Or for example, David Allen, if you know this guy, he's quite familiar with his methodology getting things done. He called it just stuff, because typically the list created after memory unload has a huge mass of tasks, ideas, projects, or whatever. And the golden rule of every effectiveness system is that any inbox, and our list by highest standards is the inbox, and any inbox shall be empty from time to time. It should not be empty always, but at least several times a week for at least a couple of seconds it should be empty. Empty means that nothing there is left unprocessed. So let me show you what does it mean to process the inbox. By the way, I'm collecting memes about effectiveness and about all other stuff. So I will be very glad to receive any if you have any. Just send it to me. I like to laugh on our human pain. So let us go for processing. Here I would like to introduce some kind of nutrition analogy. As far as we know, is that our body breaks down any food put inside this body down to basic nutrients. For example, proteins, carbohydrates, fats, or some vitamins, and so on. The same should happen with our inbox items. Any inbox item, whatever it is, it might be, for example, email or idea or item in your list after memory unload. It might contain, first of all, basic nutrients. First basic nutrient is a task. Task for us in our world, in our point of view, a task means something that have to be done, and it is clear, simple, and can be done even by our small internal monkey, instant gratification monkey. Another nutrient is project. Project means that we have to do something with this, but it is not quite clear for our monkey. So monkey will do this project anyway, but it needs help from rational decision making. Another nutrient is information. Information means that nothing should be done at all, but it is a piece of knowledge that should be necessary during execution some task or project. And the fourth nutrient is appointment or meeting. In my point of view, appointment is also a kind of information that says us that we have to be at particular place in specific time with specific people discussing some particular questions. So that is how we are going to break down our stuff that we have taken from our heads. Let me show you one of processing example of processing some mysterious email. This email sent by my imaginary boss to myself, and it is more or less typical for corporate world to send here and there emails like this. Let me show how processing works. First of all, when I read this email, I start to notice some nutrients, tasks, projects, and so on. I read, "Dear Max, below is the request from our lovely customer. Could you send them our proposal, please?" And at this point, my internal monkey gets the idea that it is the task. Prepare the service proposal for our lovely customer. Then I start to read next. "By the way, Nick has got the new case description. Please include in the proposal his version." So another task appears. Send email to Nick and ask him for his description. I'm starting processing it. Again, I think it would be a good idea to have the universal marketing document, so I wouldn't disturb you too much with requests like this. So here my monkey gets the idea that we're faced with a project, because we have to do it definitely. If boss ask us to do something like this, we should, but monkey has no idea how to deal with this, so it is a project. And also I'm reading it later. I will back on Friday. Can I meet you at about 11 a.m., 11 o'clock, to discuss this proposal and other questions? So to me it clearly seems that it is a meeting. So if I'm ready to meet my boss on Friday at 11, so let it be this appointment or meeting. And another piece of this email is information. Email and the name of our lovely customer that I have to send the proposal. So typically, after I have processed this email, I do not need this email in my inbox anymore. So I can, and I should, definitely I should, to store it either in an archive or in some particular folder for some particular project or something like this. And if I do so, from time to time, I would have what they call the zero inbox. By the way, has any one of you ever heard this strategy called zero inbox? Or maybe some of you is following this strategy. Zero inbox. Yes, say Paola. So who else? Maybe you heard about zero inbox. It's quite popular. Also, I also follow this strategy and I love this very much. And I can say you by secret, I started to follow this strategy maybe in 2008. It was the year I joined Kaspersky. And without that strategy, I would be dead. I would be dead and buried under the huge layer of all that emails coming from here and there. And you know, there are a lot of people that have not heard about zero inbox strategy. And also there are a lot of people that do like put flags on email in Outlook. Who loves flags? Oh, that nice red flags on emails. And who uses this? Because in my opinion, it is one of wasteful strategies. And maybe the worst thing is to mark some emails as unread. I know that some of you might use this. Let me show you how it can be wasteful. Here is I'm going to describe you very shortly some funny behavioral pattern. I don't know if any of you will see yourself in this behavioral pattern. Sometimes, let us take a look at some person that came to work at the morning, he has full mind fuel, full tank of mind fuel, but he has no idea what he should be working on. So first, he's going to check his emails. So, let us check emails. He goes to Outlook, see all that pretty nice unread emails that came overnight. So he has full tank of mind fuel, no idea what to do next, and full inbox of unread emails. So he starts to process them from up to down. He take a look at the first email, read it, see that some lovely customer asked for some advice or sent him his opinion on some typical point. And this guy might realize, so according to this email, I need to talk to my boss. At every moment the decision came to his head, he spends a piece of mind fuel to make this decision. That's how it works. When we think, we waste or we spend mind fuel. He came to the decision that he should talk to his boss. But then terrible thing happens because he has a lot of other emails that are unread. So maybe there are something urgent or more important than this. So maybe we should save this action for later. Let us mark as unread this email to do not forget. So we do. And we go to the next email. We read email from our boss. We see some new ideas came from this email. And for example, according to this email, we might came to the conclusion that I should call Anne and discuss something with her. As soon as we get this decision in our head, we again have to spend some mind fuel. But we haven't processed all emails in our inbox. Maybe we should mark it is unread and go further. So we mark it as unread to do not forget to call Anne and go to the email from our colleague. Also, we read this email, we come to the conclusion that we have to do something specific, for example, to resend her new document or so, something like this. We spent another piece of mind fuel. But since we are not ready to do this, we might remember that some email from behind or above seem to us more important, so maybe we should start with that email first. So to do not forget to deal with this dear colleague, we should mark this email as unread. And finally, it seems very clear to us, but it is still unclear what to do next. So we have started from situation when we have all the inbox full of unread emails. We had full tank of mind fuel and no idea what to do next. And we came to the situation we have almost empty tank of mind fuel, have no idea of what to do next, and full of unread emails inbox. Do you familiar with this behavioral pattern? How painful for you is to hear about it? You can share your ideas again in the questions pane. I don't know how many of you might behave this way. Unfortunately. Let me show you might be the better way. Hardest way, but a little bit better. But hardest, but not so painful. So what can we do? We can remember that actually what we have any inbox item that can be broken down to these 4 basic nutrients: tasks, projects, information, or appointment. Typically, information and appointments or meetings, they appear only in emails mostly. That list that we have from the beginning, where we have unloaded all our memories, most likely contains only tasks and projects. Let us spend a couple of minutes right here and right now to mark any item as either task or project. Just let me remind you that we consider something to be a task if this something is very simple and too straightforward to do, and even our monkey can do it without thinking at all. If something requires more than one monkey understandable step, or it requires thinking before doing, let us assume it to be project. Let us spend a couple of minutes right here and right now, and when you are done, just write the word ready or done in the questions. So I know that we can go further. Let us mark everything, either it is task or project, and then we will process it in more details. We are marking all items on our sheet, on our list, not in our email, because I'm pretty sure that as soon as you open your Outlook, I will lose you, because you will going to spend a year in that inbox. We need to process only those items that we have unloaded from our memory at the beginning. The same principle applies as well for our inbox items, our emails. But right now, I prefer not to touch our email, not to touch our Outlook, because we can be easily captured by this. Mary Beth done. She has done. Let us wait for 1 minute. Ashley done. Ready? Mm-hmm. 3 of us are done. Mm-hmm. 4 of us has been done. 1 more minute. Yeah, actually, most of them are tasks. There might be some 2, 3 projects. Can you just send the number of tasks / number of projects in your list? Because there might be people who have mostly tasks, and some of you might have mostly projects. 10 tasks, 3 projects. Nice. 4 tasks, 3 projects. 7 tasks, 2 projects. Not too much. 12 tasks, 4 projects. That's okay. That is nice. Let us go further with all we have right now. What do we have? Shelly, all are tasks. Shelly, how many tasks do you have? More than 10 or less than 10? At least. 7. Not too much. Not too much. I know a lot of people that have 50 or 100 tasks in his or her task list. Let us go. So then right now we are going to deal with all that nutrients in more details. First of all, we are going to deal with tasks. What does it mean to deal with tasks? The most important and very underestimated point is to use proper words in task formulations. And as far as you remember, our internal monkey among urgent and important tasks typically prefer simple, clear and simple. And it doesn't matter to it if it is either important or urgent. It will start from something clear and simple. It means that we are trying to formulate all the tasks in our list in such a way so they look very simple to us. I mean to us, to our internal monkey. For example, a typical person who loves flags in Outlook has in his task pane something like this. And maybe sometime he could try even to convince everyone, or at least himself, that everything is clear, because it might be clear, seem to clear, at least for rational decision maker. But what we are going to do is going to make our monkey work for us. What does it mean work for us? If only a rational decision maker works, we are in trouble, because he is a very weak person. But monkey is very durable, he's very strong person. So we should use it, monkey. But it is stupid. So it is able to do something which is clear and simple. So we are trying to do this and keep everything in our task list clear and simple. And by the way, I also love email like this with huge tail of forward replies, enormous number of forwards and replies. And for this emails like this, I have a special meme. I was told that every time you push reply to all button and you are at least 5th in a row, God kills a kitten somewhere. It is our sad rule. Oh, sad corporate rule. I don't know how it is painful for you, but in Moscow HQ, it is kind of pain to send a pile of emails here and there. Let me talk a little bit about monkeyfication of the task list. What does it mean to monkeyfy? What does it mean to make it clear and simple even for our monkey? It means that for every task we should meet the following rules. Every task in our list shall, first of all, minimize the procrastination gap. Let me describe you what does it mean, the procrastination gap. This is my own invention. Sometimes it might happen that in our task list we write one thing, but at the same time we are going, or we are supposed to do completely different thing. What does it mean? For example, in our task list we might have something that says send the monthly report. Good task, or at least it seemed to be a good task. But actually our first step toward this monthly report is, for example, compile the monthly report. Or before to compile, we have to have some information. So we have to get this information. How we can get this? We should, for example, write an email to the team asking for data. And maybe somewhere in between we have to remind several times to reply to our email. So it means that having this wording in the task list and at the same time having this really next action to do, we have such procrastination gap. Procrastination gap is some mythical distance between what we actually have to do and what we have written in the task list. And the more the procrastination gap is, the higher probability of task procrastination due to unknown reason. As soon as I write something to my task list, something that assumes that completely different thing should be done, this task will be just postponed for the later. very straightforward way. So any task formulation shall minimize the procrastination gap. Also, it should begin with the verb, a good one, because there are good verbs and bad verbs. For example, good verbs shows that we have not too much thinking to be done. We just actions to do, like write email to somebody to ask something, or check something somewhere, ask somebody about something, remind somebody about something, or chase, or compose if it doesn't require too much mind fuel, or read something also which doesn't require too much mind fuel, or buy something specific. I mean, just buy, go to say Amazon and just place an order. If we have to select something, it most likely will be procrastinated, and I will also later talk in more details about selection and about choosing, how painful it is in modern world with too much choices. And also there are bad verbs or procrastinations, something that can be easily procrastinated, something that let your monkey know or feel that too much thinking is required. For example, research something, think, decide, choose, analyze, create the plan, or read the new book. Or these are most of the time these are considered to be projects. For example, start running, or quit smoking, or bring democracy to Cuba. These are definitely procrastinations. And typically, as soon as our monkey faces to some formulations like this, it quickly decide to postpone it, to save it for later. And the monkey postpones a complex task not to ruin our life. Monkey is not bad. He is very good actually. It is a very good person. And it do so not to ruin our life. It is do so because from its point of view it is very logical and very understandable, very logical to start something clear and simple as soon as you face to something complex. Let me show you, let me demonstrate the way monkey thinks, how it processes, how it handles complex tasks. As soon as it faces to something complex, it's start to think. What a complex task! I have to concentrate on it. If it requires thinking, I have to think. To think means to concentrate. It's quite straightforward. What does it mean to concentrate? It means no distraction. So I have to do something to stop all that distractions. And what distracts me the most? And most of that distractions are those small and unimportant tasks that are coming from messengers, from emails, from our colleagues. So what have I to do? What should I do? I have to deal with them first. So I have to complete all of them. So I hope right now you see that from monkey point of view, it is very logical to start doing something unimportant and simple as soon as you face to a complex task. So that is a mechanism that lies behind of procrastination of some important stuff. We have a lot of work to procrastinate besides of that important and urgent stuff. So that is why we should minimize as much as possible the procrastination gap and use proper verb at the beginning of task work. And another point is that task formulation, or the well formulated task, should require as little mind fuel as possible. As little as possible. It doesn't mean that everything we will be able to do is something simple that doesn't require thinking too much. No, it means that we're trying to think a lot at the beginning to think less during the execution. These are, again, three main pillars that Buddhist Buddhist approach to learning is based on is getting information. For example, get what has been sent to you in your inbox, reflect on it, process, decide where are tasks, where are projects, formulate tasks in proper way. And what does it mean, formulate tasks in proper way? It means create the task list. Literally, it means we have to prepare guidelines for our monkey. And then we go to action. And also, during this cycle, the monkey and rational decision maker have to live in peace and harmony. It means that reflection stays on rational side with a little bit of monkey, of course, and action mostly goes for monkey, of course, with a little bit of rational decision maker. So that is how our working cycle works, how it looks. Just get information, think, prepare guidelines, and execute, and so on, and repeat. And maybe the last point is to take any task from our task list shall take not more than 20 minutes. This last point actually is not literal requirements, but if we see any task in our task list that we feel will take more than 20 minutes, this task might be the procrastination. So we should think twice about this task. Let me show you good examples of task formulations. For example, call Anne to ask if she is available on Monday, 12 p.m. For example, to set up a meeting. Or email George asking the case description. Find a message from George with dentist number. Or Google a picture of Minion for a slide or for some presentation, and so on. And also, it is a good point in some point of time to add tasks like this. Remind somebody about something, because typical case is to when we are doing our task, we can send email to someone and we expect to have reply back. And there are two kind of people. First kind are very, they are familiar with all that stuff. They have zero inbox and they are trustworthy. So we feel no anxiety sending them email, and we are almost sure that we will have a reply. And another group of people are not so trustworthy. They might forgot, they might missed it, they might not even read that email. So it means that at some point of time we should remind them. I don't know if this case is familiar to you. It is also kind of meme. It is a kind of screenshot from a chat taking place in some company. Not literally, it is actually, this one is fake, but I know a lot of chats like this. By the way, have you ever been in the situation like this? Do you understand the pain behind this picture? Can you share your opinion on this? How painful it is. I hope it is. So that is why at some point of time we should, if we send some request to some person and we do not consider this person to be trustworthy, but we need reply anyway, just create a task in your list. Remind somebody about something, resend email to somebody else, or so on. So any task in our task list should be created according to this list. It should be minimize procrastination gap, begin with a verb, require as little mind fuel as possible, and take not more than 20 minutes. Let us again perform small exercise right here and right now. First of all, I'm going to ask you to take another list, another piece of paper, or whatever. I think piece of paper might work much better. Just get another list, title it task list, because right now we are going to create real task list with all items intended for monkey. As soon as you get the list, do the following. One by one, what was marked as a task in our initial list, start to move these tasks to our task list. And by the way, at the same time, start to change wording for this. Start formulate it for you, for future you. To do not think when you are going to do it. Let us spend also 3 or 5 minutes right here and right now for task reformulation. And also just let me know when you are done by writing done or complete in a question pane. So I will know when we should proceed. Let me know when you are done with this exercise. As soon as you're done, can you share your feelings about this? What do you think? What do you think? What do you feel looking at this task list? What has happened with this? Hmm, very nice. Nice, nice, nice. Actually, road makes you stressed. Yeah, maybe. But the main idea is a lot of things, but most of them are fast. Exactly. It is exactly what we are going to have. We are going to have a list of quite simple, quite fast, quite straightforward things to do with no thinking required. Because we are constrained not by our time, we are constrained by our mindfulness, by our ability to think and make decisions. So as far as we are more or less mindful, we can decide what can we do and then just do. Just switch off half of our brain to for restoration, and then just do some tasks without thinking or with as less thinking as possible. Has anyone finished, or are we waiting for somebody else? Kevin done, Pete done. So anyway, all of you are done. It's good. So it will be a good point to continue with projects. Let me show you what can we do with projects. And it will be our next topic to talk about projects. I'm not going to talk in more details very deeply about projects. It will be the topic of next webinars. But at the moment, you might take your daily checklist. By the way, guys, do you have the daily checklist printed out to mark how do you follow our new practices? If you already have this list, it is one more list, one more tool, source of hope, actually. It is kind of source of hope, and we hope it might help us to change our behavior. If you do have this list, please write down additional practice, because right now we have tried and exercised new practice. It means all tasks are monkeyfied. Monkeyfied means prepared for the monkey. If so, you can mark this practice as processed for today. Write down plus for today in column for today. And then we will go to talk about projects. Maybe the most important point about project is that one should be aware of adding any project to the task list. Inevitably, it will be procrastinated, because among important and urgent stuff, our internal monkey always selects clear and simple, and projects rarely are clear and simple. So that is why we are working, or we should work, we intend to work with projects in different manner. So let me briefly describe you my idea. Idea actually is not mine, it was inherited from the book by Nassim Taleb. By the way, who knows Nassim Taleb? Who has read at least some part of his any book? Because I think this guy is more or less, he's a genius, maybe in some sense, and he is more or less popular in the whole world. And he was trader at the beginning, and actually he was the prototype for a movie called Long Short. If any of you have seen this movie, Long Short, about the crisis of 2008, Taleb was the guy who predicted this crisis. But at the time his first book, Fooled by Randomness, was written, nobody took him seriously. But when he earned during the 2008 $500 million, they started to think about him a little bit more seriously. So I love this guy. I love his book, and his current book is the latest, not the latest, because the latest is called The Skin in the Game, and it will be presented in February. It is his pre-last book, Anti-Fragile, about things that gain from disorder. I love this book very much, but it's very hard to read, and not too much people can deeply understand his idea. But I have quite short idea of him. He called this idea the rational flaneur. Flaneur from French word, as you might guess, flaneur. It means to walk somewhere without any specific goal. He wrote about rational flaneur the following: the rational flaneur is someone who, unlike a tourist, makes a decision at every step to revise his schedule so he can imbibe things based on new information. And following, he writes that flaneur continuously, and what is crucial, rationally modifies his targets as he acquires new information. So as soon as we face to any project, we should admit that we face to uncertainty. What does it mean, uncertainty? What does it mean, the rational flaneur scheme at all? It means that as soon as we face to any project, we might have a vision. A vision may be vague because at the very beginning it's rarely clear, especially if the project itself is very complicated. At some point of time, we might have idea of what called minimally acceptable result, or for example, in lean startup methodology, they call it minimal viable product. Also, we are going to talk about this in more details on our last webinar dedicated to procrastination itself. And the place or space between minimally acceptable result and the vision of the result of the whole project is the zone that nobody knows any idea what happens there. Also, the space between where we are standing at the moment and between our minimally acceptable result also is a kind of experience-based learning zone. I like to show it like a field of rakes. I don't know if in English you have the same impression like in Russian as well, because literally in Russian, to step on rakes means to learn the same mistake twice. And in some places there might be even axed rakes, some kind of more dangerous rakes, and nobody knows what happens there. And all we can see at the moment, or everything we can have at any particular moment, is the next step that we can write down to our task list, and next step we can ask our monkey to do. We can delegate to monkey. One step, maybe two. Rarely we can have three monkeyfiable, monkey understandable steps. And so that's how our rational flaneur scheme looks like. And definitely in some complicated cases with some complex projects, we have a lot of uncertainty, we have a lot of disorder, we have a lot of unknown. So we have to have any means to deal with this. So what we are typically to do, how our approach to such a project looks like. It looks like as follows. We start from the end, we look at the vision, we try to draw it in our minds as clear as possible, and then we are trying to evaluate following by any method. I will show you the simplest method today and the more complicated method for finding Monkeyfy step later on 5th webinar. So we have to invent, or we have to figure out what our next step could be. And then we make this step, stop, think of or evaluate the next step again. Then again we can execute this step, think, execute the next step, and think. So in basics, it is how the whole approach looks like. Why do we do this? The main topic, the main idea behind this approach is one of fundamental asymmetry of our world itself, or at least one of aspect of this asymmetry. Why do what actually do I mean by this asymmetry? For example, let us consider an observer, and let us consider that behind this observer there are two things: some opportunity, very good and nice opportunity, and terrible big trouble. So try to guess how these things will behave if this observer will just close his eyes and will ignore everything. I think you understand that they are going to behave differently, not in the same way. So I guess all of you might understand that as soon as I close my eyes behind opportunity and trouble, opportunity will disappear, it will go away inevitably and very fast, but trouble will not. Trouble will stay with me and maybe beat me very hard. So do you remember the color changing car trick video by Richard Wiseman? Who has watched this video? Can you mark, just send me a plus in a question pane. Who has watched the video of that very nice, fascinating card trick with color changing cards? I see some of you watched this video. It is the main idea. This video shows very well that when you see on something particular, you miss everything else. So often the same happens with a plan. As soon as we have a plan, or at least if this plan is over detailed at early stages, it might happen that trying to follow this plan make you ignore both opportunity and troubles. But opportunity and trouble differently in different way react on ignorance. Opportunity will go away and trouble will bite you. So that is how it works. I don't want to say that planning is bad, no, but over-reliance on a plan, especially on very vague plan, especially on a plan that has been created on early stages of the project, over-reliance may drive you into troubles. Of course, leaving all opportunities unnoticed. So that is why we would like to make one or two steps, and then stop and think. Take a look. Are there any troubles or are there any opportunities to that? Then again, we reconsider the whole situation. Think about another one or two steps that can be delegated to our internal monkey. Execute these steps and then again think. So today I'm going to present you a very simple way to evaluate this very first step. I call this method the fore method. How one can use this method? The method quite simple. All we should do is take our project into consideration. Try maybe close your eyes and think about final result. What I want to have at the end. When or under what circumstances I would consider this project to be success. And spend, for example, 7 breaths on this, 7 seconds to think about this. As soon as the vision became more or less clear in your mind, imagine that magic fairy came and it says, I can give you 20 minutes so you could do at least something to make you at least a little bit closer to that vision. What can you do? And then start thinking about this fairy and start thinking about this maximum 20 minutes. First idea definitely will come from monkey side. Do not listen to it, do not take it seriously, because what came from monkey side is an impression that 20 minutes are more than enough to start a business, learn Spanish, and also we'll have enough time to watch videos on YouTube. So if we have enough time, if 20 minutes are enough to do all that, let us start from YouTube, for example. And second impression, I think, will go from side of either a cognitive bug or some rational decision maker, who is going to say that 20 minutes far enough to do at least anything. So you have to spend at least 14 hours to do at least anything. But we can also pass this idea, leave this idea, and listen to maybe third or maybe fourth idea that came to your mind. And most likely, if the project is more or less simple or more or less clear, the idea of third or fourth thought is going to be more or less relevant, and it will be more or less like task, Monkeyfy task. So let us try this method right here and right now. And first step to do it, let us move all our projects to another list. So finally, what we are going to have? We are going to have 2 lists, list with projects and list with tasks. And this list with all stuff that we have unloaded from our memory at the beginning, we can just get rid of it after all items are processed. What does it mean all items are processed? It means that any item is identified either as task and then it is monkeyfied and put to task list, either it is identified as a project and put to project list. So let us spend 1 minute right here and right now to rewrite projects from this initial list. So we will not need this list anymore. So let us just write down projects to have 1 list with projects only and 1 list with tasks only. And also let me know when you are done. Yeah, it should be quite simple because many of you have not too much projects in your lists. And who of you, by the way, started to check his or her emails? Who was suddenly distracted by something and was caught by Outlook or something else? Because sometimes it happens. I will talk about this deeply on Friday, because actually our mind is out of our control. It is normal. I think all of you might heard about not disease but situation called attention disorder. Also, it sometimes comes with hyperactivity disorders. I have to catch myself when I hear the email notification. On Friday, I will say you turn them off. Also on Friday, I'm going to talk about this in more details. I will explain why and why nothing terrible happens. But if you are distracted by this, you can try that right now. Just turn them off, at least for a couple of days, and see what can be changed inside your mind. So, as soon as we prepared our list of projects, let us go further. And right now, using this magic fairy method, let us think about very next Monkeyfy step for every project. Also, you could mark every project with a letter to keep a tracing among the tasks in your task list and the project itself. So let us spend 2 minutes right here and right now in order to add for most of your project the Monkeyfy steps that can be done without thinking, that are formulated with as less procrastination gap as possible, start with verb, and can be done even with monkey. Also, let me know when you are done. Let us prepare the task list. Also, when you are done, share your feelings about this. How do you start to feel inside your mind? Let us spend 1 more minute playing on this. Pete writes that breaking the projects down into actionable steps helps, but we should not break them down. For every project, we should have no more than 1, maybe 2 steps. We should not take all that steps out. 1 or 2 will be enough. We will create 1 step, make it, then go to the project, think, create another step, make it, and again think. Otherwise, if we have at least 10 projects in our list and say 10 tasks for each, we would definitely end up with 100 tasks in our task list. And Monkey will be frightened by this amount of tasks. No, it wouldn't be for Monkey at all. Monkeyfy task list shouldn't be longer than, say, 30 items. Otherwise, it is too complex for it. Who is done? And also, I would like to ask to share your impression how hard it was. Did you feel some brain work, some unpleasant feeling, something that more or less similar to feeling when I was asking you about how does the ball cost in that, the bat and the ball cost problem? Do we have an intention to leave this project for later? There's some smell of procrastination. Power is done. Let us wait one more minute and then I would like to share one more thing with you. Done? Okay, let us go. Right now I would like to tell you a little bit more what I'm going to tell you about things called urgency zones. Because at the previous webinar I was asked about any template for a task list, and I think it is a good point to share at least one possible template for a task list, or one possible approach, which initially I was inspired by this, by thinking about this approach by Michael Linenberger and his book Total Workday Control. By the way, I'm showing all those books not to make you feel, not to force you to read them. It is a kind of showing respect to the author, because I understand that many of you might have a huge list of books that are not going to be read anytime. So it is a kind of respect to the author. So he introduced in his book a concept of urgency zones. In some point of time, I used the same concept for me, and also I use the same concept right now for managing my task list. It means that we have some tasks split on 3 urgency zones. Linenberger called them critical now, opportunity now, and over horizon. And I prefer to call this just today, week, and later, because typically in Microsoft Outlook they have tasks that can be assigned for today, this week, next week, and later. It is rough time scale. We do not need more precise time scale due to a lot of uncertainties. So this one works very nice. But if you would like to use this approach of these urgency zones, you are going to use not just plain list, but it would be nice to use some notebook. For example, I have a notebook like this. Let me show again my webcam because it's closed. Do you see my webcam? Because I'm trying to show you my notebook. For example, it's not that I'm working on daily basis. I have another tool for this. But for example, you can follow this approach by means of simple notebook and simple stickers, post-it notes. And you can create a page for tasks today, a fold or several pages for tasks for this week, and another page for later. why do we need post-it notes? Because it is simpler to reassign any task from today to week and from week to later. We can just unstick it and stick to proper place. It should be work like this. So some time ago I was working with a notebook like this. It would work pretty well, but I prefer use online tools actually. So that is why I left this idea of stickers and notebooks. But if you wish to use some paper, you can use it in this way. And in this way, you can introduce urgency zones. Also, what does it mean, urgency zones? Typically, we are going to execute tasks only from today's page. And other pages we are going to review on regular basis. On daily basis, at least daily, we should review week tasks, and at least weekly we should review later. And also we should move all the points, all the post-it notes here and there as we need, as we should, as you like. So, by the way, who is going to use some paper offline stuff? How many of you are going to use offline stuff? And who is going to use some online? Because my impression is that in corporate world, nothing is better than Microsoft Outlook. But due to some perception abilities, some people do like physical stuff to work with. So it doesn't matter that one approach is better than another. It is just one people prefer offline tools and other online. Like some people prefer one car maker and another people another car maker. So it is just a few words about urgency zones. We will talk about regular reviews a little bit later. It is a topic of our fourth webinar. So at this point it is enough to understand that at some point of time they should take place. At least daily we should take a look weekly page, and at least weekly, maybe a couple of times a week, we should take a look at later. By the way, I should also say a few words. Why should we split our tasks into urgency zones? If you have a task list only with, say, 10 tasks, you do not need these urgency zones. But if you have 20 or 30 tasks, you might have to have one or maybe two urgency zones, because it also leads to our irrational behavior. I think all of you are more or less familiar with this kind of behavior, because in some point of time I can see 5 tasks in my list and feel myself more or less ready to work. But when I see 10 tasks, I feel myself a little bit stressed, but anyway I can work out. I can complete all that 10 tasks. But as soon as I see, say, for example, 20 tasks, something irrational happens inside my brain, and that's it. And I start to panic and I stop to do anything. So that is why in some cases we should hide at least something from our monkey, to do not frighten it. That is it. And the last point I would like to share with you today is one more very simple and very straightforward practice. I call it nailer. It is a tool that can help you to remove nails from wood. And this name I've heard from my Zen teacher, old Zen teacher, goes deep to Zen culture. And the name originated from such behavioral pattern. For example, it might happen like this. You might sitting before your laptop and trying to work, and then someone comes and asks you something. And as far as we know, at this point we should consider this something to be our inbox item. So we have to put it in box, not literally, but we should put it in box and then process it. But it might happen that due to some reason we could simply say, all right, I will remember this. So as soon as we say this, as soon as we decide to remember this stuff, the nail gets in our brain. And it strongly depends on our corporate culture, and in some cases our day might end up with a head full of nails. And the worst thing about the nails is that they tend to remember itself. It is at very inappropriate time, by the way. For example, on that on that subtle edge between falling asleep and staying awake. I think most of you are familiar with this event, with this phenomena, when you are almost asleep and then an idea comes to your brain. Oh shit! I should be. I had to write down that report. I should deal with that server or something. And this idea completely blows you off, and you are not able to sleep at all. And the easiest way to get rid of the nails is as follows. You should find a quiet place where you can hide for just a couple of minutes, be relaxed, and try to remember your day backwards. Not forward from the morning to the evening, but backwards. From current moment until the morning. So remembering your day backwards make most of, not all of the nails, but most of them appears. And as soon as you remember something, just write it down. You can at the same time, at the very same moment, decide either it is a task or a project, and then write it down in appropriate place. But if it is quite hard for you at this situation to understand what it is, either project or task, you can send email to yourself, for example, or put it somewhere there. Let us try just the last thing we are going to try right here and right now, last 2 minutes. Try to remember, I understand that right now for most of you it is early morning. Try to remember your day previously, your yesterday, from the end to the start, backwards. Let us spend 1 minute for this and try to remember your day. And if you remember something, just write it down. Either it is project or a task, or if there's something unclear, the stuff in box, just write an email to yourself. And then you will deal with this. Let us do it right here and right now. 1 moment. 1 minute. I hope you are done with this. How many things you have remembered? Can you write this number? How many things appeared in your mind? 3. Good. 5. 5 things. 4. Let me guess, all those things are new things. that has not been written down to your list previously. Proper result is when you try to remember your day backwards, you remember nothing. You just spend 2 minutes on remembering your day. If you remember at least something, do not hesitate to practice several times a day. This is quite straightforward, quite simple practice actually. So try to use it. Also, please write down the name of this practice in your practice section of your daily checklist. So tomorrow you can mark plus this practice. And a few words about why we should remember our day backwards. My Zen teacher said at some point of time that you should not ask a teacher, just do what he says. But I was very interested in these mechanics, why remembering day backwards is more sufficient or more helpful than remembering day front direction. He said, and I came to the following conclusion, that when we try to remember day backwards, it helps us to remove any context from all the events that happen to us. And as you might see, it is a very funny experiment that shows you when you try to read this text in the front, after few lines, you start to miss the mistakes. And when I was publishing the book, the chief editor, told me that they typically, to found any typos, they read book backwards. Because when you read the book in forward direction, you have a context, you have an idea, and this idea, context, and additional information make your brain ignore some of typos, some of mistakes. But when you read it backwards, more mistakes became apparent to us. And another famous example of how context might affect our perception is this. I think many of you have already seen this experiment. Can you take a look at square A and square B? Can you write your guess? Which of these squares is darker and which is lighter? What do you think? I think you might guess that it is not too straightforward. The same. A is darker than B. We see this. But as Buddha says, we do not see things in the way they are. It's common Buddha tradition. Buddha came from Buddhist and from modern neuropsychology as well. So of course B looks lighter than A, but what makes us see B lighter than A? The context does. And just try to look closely on that A and B squares, and I try to one by one, piece by piece, remove the context from you. I will first remove one part, then another, one more. So as soon as all the context is removed, which one is lighter, which one is darker? I think right now it became more or less clear that they exactly the same color. But if I put all the context back, they again seems a little bit darker. A again seems to be darker than B. But again, as soon as I remove any context, I see them the same. So this is example of I remember some TED talk, but I forgot whom. Maybe it was Danny Riley, who used this illusion to see that we are not able to be taught on our experience, because we were told just before that A is the same as the B, but as soon as we go back, we see them differently. So finally, let me conclude this webinar. First of all, I would like you to ask would like to ask you to continue use your daily checklist. If you haven't started it, please download it, print it out, and start to follow the practice. Mark your successes and failures of following practices. From first webinars, we have two practices. One practice is to unload our memory via trigger list, and another practice is at least some time a day spent for doing tasks from the task list. And for this webinar, we have two more practices. All tasks are monkeyfied, so we have task list prepared for monkeys, our internal instant gratification monkey. And another practice, pull the nails off the head. Just sit down, relax, and try to remember your day backwards for 1 minute, 1.5 minutes, not more. And also, if you would like to go further, a little bit behind in front of the group, you can take a look at this document with more vaccines, indicators, and practices. So here is a conclusion for today's webinar. So if you have any question, I'm ready to answer this. If you have any. If not, we inevitably would have to go for work, I guess. That's a favorite saying of Eugene. Let's go back to work. Our old tradition. So, okay, if no questions so far, you can feel free to ask me any question in our Facebook group. And also today I will check if it is possible to upload video to LinkedIn group, and if so, I will create closed LinkedIn group. So I hope everyone, any of you has a LinkedIn account, so we could communicate there. It was very nice to meet you again here, and be ready. I'm going to send you feedback form for this webinar. I'm eager to have a feedback from you, not to control you, but control myself. I want to make sure that you got the message that I was thinking, I was translating. So if I see that you didn't mention any message that I was thinking I was translating, I will correct it somehow, and maybe I will include it one more time in the following webinars. So if you have not answered yet for previous feedback form, also I would kindly ask you to do so, because it helps for all of us. It helps me to make following webinars better. So thank you to all of you, or as you say, muchas gracias, and see you on Friday online. Thank you guys. Goodbye.